Hello and welcome to the Cloud Gaming Report. I'm Zach, and in this episode we have a lot to discuss, a lot of news. Phil Spencer had a very interesting interview. It was quite lengthy, but he had an interview at the Barclays convention. So I have some quotes from that just to discuss today. Following that, Shadow has announced their Hive, which kind of seems to be a kind of combination of Parsec's Party Finder and Mixer with like interactive streaming. So that's kind of interesting. We'll be talking about that a little bit. We also have some other announcements from Shadow. And following that, we have the big announcement that LiquidSky is closing down their servers for right now because they are ending the beta. We don't know when LiquidSky will open back up, but they do have the intention at this point in time of opening back up, and they're still going to have a focus on gaming. So guys, lots to discuss today. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's go ahead and get started with our first topic, and that is the interview with Phil Spencer. There are a lot of very interesting discussion points from this interview. The first of which is the fact that Microsoft is going to be bringing their A game to the next generation of Xbox devices. So in the last year, Phil Spencer has said that they have either acquired or started 7 new first-party studios. This is going to be very important for Microsoft as they push their Xbox Game Pass subscription. This is definitely a route that Microsoft is going overall. We see Office definitely moving to the subscription with Office 365, and Windows might even in the future. We kind of see that a little bit on the business side with Microsoft 365, but we might even see that on the consumer side in the future too. So to really push their subscription service, they're going to have to kind of mirror Netflix, and we can draw a lot of comparisons to Netflix from the Xbox Game Pass. There aren't a lot of new games available on the Xbox Game Pass. Most of those are older games, but that's kind of how Netflix started. They did see though that as their competitors started to launch similar services and more stream services became kind of the norm, they had to start launching their own first-party content. And this is going to be very important for Microsoft too. They're going to need a steady rollout of new content that's available kind of exclusive to their service, to really draw customers in, and then that kind of huge backlog of older games is kind of just going to be there to fill in the gaps of once you beat a brand new game, having something to play so you just don't cancel the service. And we see a lot of similarities there between Netflix. So Netflix has their own first-party content, but they also have a ton of older content, especially on the TV show side. Not as much on movies, but definitely in the TV world. You'll get a whole season of the last season when the new season is about to launch on TV. So we can draw a lot of similarities there. So this is definitely important for Microsoft in the move to the future, and definitely is going to be a strong foundation for their subscription service as a whole. I could definitely see kind of everything being kind of grouped up into a single subscription in the future, where you have your cloud gaming hardware, your Xbox Game Pass, and their next generation of Xbox Live that does all their matchmaking overall. So very cool there. Hopefully we see some cool games coming from these first-party studios in the near future. Moving on from that, we're going to kind of focus our discussion and talk about Project XCloud related discussion points from the interview. And what I'm going to be talking about is kind of showing how dedicated consoles are no longer the sole focus of their gaming division. And in fact, it seems that Android is going to be a major target here in the near future. So here's a direct quote from Phil Spencer that's going to be kind of lay the foundation for our discussion here in a little bit. So we focus first on an Android phone because there's over 1 billion Android phones on the planet, and it's a place that the content that we've natively built up over the past decades on our platform hasn't been able to reach, end quote. And later on, he also talks about another short quote, for us, it's all about how we reach 2 billion gamers, end quote. So those two quotes kind of combine and will be the foundation for what I want to talk about for the remainder of this topic about his interview. So there's a couple interesting things from that statement. The first of which is the focus of Android and kind of the implications that it has. So I just assumed that the PC and Android and everything would have launch in the beta at the same time. But from his statements, it seems that Android might be the focus. In fact, the PC might not actually have a beta right off the bat. Now that is pure speculation on my part. And the second part of that, the second interesting thing I found was pure speculation too. But I didn't actually think that PC wouldn't be in the beta at first, but maybe they might only release this on mobile devices in the, at the beginning of their beta, and as they start to roll out the service. so as to not directly compete with their Xbox console, at least not the next generation. Now in the future, maybe the next generation of Xbox after this one that's coming up, maybe everything will be purely cloud and they'll have applications for the PC and so on and so forth. But the early stages of Project XCloud might only be on mobile, and that could make a little bit of sense because it wouldn't allow them, or wouldn't make it so they're not directly competing with their Xbox consoles. And cloud gaming isn't quite mainstream yet, so they're probably not going to lose out on too much, in terms of possible subscriptions on the PC side. So the second interesting thing from that discussion is the fact that in the mobile realm, he mainly only mentions Android. In fact, I don't remember, and none of my quotes show iOS at all, but I don't remember anything about iOS in his interview. So that's interesting too. Maybe we'll see the beta only launch on Android. It might instead of being a mobile exclusive, maybe it's an Android exclusive here in the near future, and they're going to be focusing on Android. Maybe we'll see the beta be on Android. And as they roll out the full service to Android, maybe iOS will enter the beta, and they'll kind of do a staged rollout where maybe even PC might follow iOS, and that'll give them time to kind of roll out the service, fully test it on a limited number of devices, and then continue to roll out the service. So that is all pure speculation from his interview points. It might be possible that on day one, they'll have iOS, Android, and PC apps. That is entirely to be told in the future. But his discussion or his statements kind of lead me to think along those lines. And taking his statement in context and re-watching their XCloud video, you don't see any footage, at least that I remember of an old PC, like a $200 laptop that's a couple years old, or even a brand new $200 laptop, because that's not going to have gaming hardware. They don't show that being used to play XCloud. It's all focusing on phones and tablets. So just some interesting things that kind of make you, if you go back and watch that video, it gives you a little bit more context and maybe leads us to see where the future of XCloud is going to lead us, at least here in the short term. I definitely think they will release XCloud for the PC. I think it's too big of a market to ignore. There are a ton of people with PCs that are low power that would definitely love the service. But maybe in the future, it is only a mobile exclusive and possibly an Android exclusive. If it turns out that way, you guys heard it here first. Well, hopefully. So anyways, I think that kind of wraps up our discussion points on XCloud and and Phil Spencer's interview in total at the Barclays media event. So let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. One of the more surprising announcements from this week's episode is the new announcement from Blade, the company behind the Shadow Cloud gaming platform, and that is Hive. Hive is a community platform / service, whatever you want to call it. There aren't a lot of details, so it's really hard to classify it at this point in time. From their video, which was very ambiguous, I got some vibes of kind of like a mixture type service where you have interactive streaming. They did mention the ability to take controls for the person that is actually streaming and playing the game. They don't really mention if it's kind of has elements of like Parsec's Party Finder, where it's designed to allow multiple people to play local multiplayer games regardless of where they are. So we really don't know too much about the service really. What we do know is that if you are a current subscriber to Shadow, you can apply to be in the beta, but access is not guaranteed. So if you think that Hive looks very interesting and intriguing, don't sign up for Shadow simply on the grounds of hoping to get into beta. However, once the service fully launches in 2019, all people that are members of Shadow will get full access. They did mention beyond that, they will open up Hive to non-Shadow members, but that's kind of further in the future, and the exact timeline isn't really laid out because we really don't have much details at all. Speaking of which, we have some very interesting insights into the future of Shadow from an interview on MMORPG, and that the first of which is the fact that they are working on launching their multiple monitor support. This is very interesting because having multiple monitors is always handy on a gaming viewpoint. If you want to stream from your cloud gaming rig, you can have OBS up, for instance, and that'll give you details about your streaming quality by your upload rate. You can also get details of if you're dropping packets or things like that. It's always nice to have like a preview of your stream just to make sure that everything is working right, and the fact that you're not streaming a black screen. Of course, some of those aspects you can just have like a tablet set up right now anyways with your Twitch stream to make sure that things are coming through good and you can read chat from that. But it is nice to have a second screen for that. And if you plan on using Shadow for any type of productivity app, like editing videos, it's always super nice to have a second screen if you're doing any type of work-related content on your Shadow device. So with all that being said, very cool. But where this is super cool is the fact that you don't have to have that second or third screen connected to the same physical device. So right now on my desktop, if I wanted to have multiple screens, I would have to have all those screens connected to my desktop. But in the future, Shadow will allow you to have your primary screen be, for instance, on your old desktop. Then you can use your old laptop as a secondary screen. So that's very cool. You don't have to have everything tied to a single device. And this could be very cool for people that are on the go, working on the go maybe, or even just wanting to play some games on the go. You have your primary screen being your old laptop, for instance, that's not quite powerful enough to play games anymore. Use that as your primary device, and then you have an old tablet that can work as your secondary device. Very cool there. So I'm very excited to get my hands on this. The second thing is that Shadow is going to be selling their first 1,000 Ghosts in December. Time is starting to run out by the time I've recorded this episode, so hopefully those release very soon, but we will see the full launch of the Ghost in 2019. The final topic for today's video is kind of a sad one, especially for me personally, and that is the fact that LiquidSky is ending their beta and closing down their service for now. They do have plans to come back, and they will come back with a focus on gaming. But for now, they are going to be shutting their service down. Actually, very shortly, by the time you guys are watching or listening to this, they probably have already shut down, because they're shutting down on Monday, December 17th. I'm recording this on Sunday morning around lunch. So by the time I get it edited and get it uploaded and it gets distributed, it'll probably actually already be closed down. And this is kind of sad. It does have hope for the future of LiquidSky though. But I probably actually wouldn't be here making videos if it wasn't for LiquidSky, because I found LiquidSky and started testing it, and it's like, holy moly, this is cloud gaming is actually truly legit now. Like, it's something that is actually possible, and that's really good. Like, I had to share my thoughts on this, and that's kind of why I really started getting to YouTube. I was starting to do a little bit, like I started an early podcast on general tech news a little bit. It wasn't really a full podcast, and I started doing videos on Synology too, but like, LiquidSky is what really got me interested in like sharing the word about cloud gaming. So I definitely am probably here because of LiquidSky, but I think they're doing things right this time. When they went from LiquidSky 1.0 to 2.0, they had a lot of big ideas. They had their free cloud gaming initiative where you could watch ads to get free credits for cloud gaming. That is very cool. I know there's a lot of people that would love to game on a very high-powered device that don't have a lot of money, and if they could trade some of their time in terms of or watching ads in exchange for the ability to play, 30 minutes a day, I know there's certain people that would love to take advantage of that, and it definitely makes more sense to supplement your your gaming credits, where you buy $10 a week or something like that, or maybe just $10 a month rather, and then you kind of supplement that by watching ads for additional credits. Kind of similar to how Twitch allows you to give bits to people, and you can get additional bits by watching an ad. So it was an interesting idea. It definitely just didn't pan out, and we saw that go away. And their whole the whole process of going from 1.0 to 2.0 was very disappointing. There was a lot of promises that weren't fulfilled. They kept on missing dates. It was a big overall hassle. So shutting down the service and relaunching it when what I'm calling LiquidSky 3.0 is ready is very good in my opinion, because if it is as big as the changes they're talking about, we won't actually experience those things, because it frustrated more people probably than, they probably lost a lot of customers from the 1.0 to 2.0 transfer simply because of all the frustration, especially since other competitors were starting to enter the market at that upload. And to be honest, the service simply wasn't as good for a very long period of time. In fact, I simply stopped benchmarking it as heavily and covering it as heavily because other competitors were entering the market like Shadow, and we had very solid offerings from Paperspace with Parsec, that you had much more powerful hardware out there. And when they increased their rates, it simply didn't make a lot of sense unless you gained very little and wanted to buy a couple credits or buy a pack of credits and simply use those over a longer period of time. But even that became less and less viable. So hopefully LiquidSky will come back strong in the future. I'm hopeful to see what it is for their sake. Hopefully they get a lot of their fans back when they relaunch, but it does seem like in the short term, people will have to pick a different cloud gaming subscription if you don't really have a good gaming computer at home and cloud gaming was your main ability to play games. My personal recommendation right now is Shadow. You can get more information about that in my best cloud gaming platform of 2018 video that I released probably about a month ago now. That wraps up this episode of the Cloud Gaming Report. Thank you guys for watching or listening. I do greatly appreciate your guys' support. I do need to get back into a more regular basis with this podcast. I do apologize for that, but I've said that more than once. So I just need to get things figured out with my schedule and get back into that rhythm of producing these on a more regular basis, because there was a lot to cover in this podcast. This is probably going to be one of the longer podcasts because there was so much stuff going on. It was for a little while, it seemed like news was slowing down, but things are starting to pick back up. We have a lot of interesting things going on in the world of cloud gaming. I think 2019 is going to be big for cloud gaming. This actually might be the last episode of the Cloud Gaming Report for 2018. So guys, if it is, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate, and bring in the new year strong. I'm looking forward to the future of cloud gaming in 2019. There's going to be some very interesting things. So guys, once again, thanks for watching or listening, and until next time, Zach out.